رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all my brothers and sisters who are watching this video. I welcome you all to the fourth session of Islamic Forums. Again today we're going to discuss something really important. We're going to discuss how the Quran, the glorious Quran, was compiled. Regarding this topic, there are many controversies. Like the non-Muslims claim that the Quran was written after 50 years after the death of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and like that, many blames. So today I will tell you that the compilation of Quran is divided into three distinct stages. The first stage was during the lifetime of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. The second stage is during the caliphate period of the first rightly guided caliph, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and the third stage is during the rightly guided caliphate period of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Now the first stage, preservation of Quran during the lifetime of the Prophet, peace be upon him. The Prophet, peace be upon him, used to memorize the Quran as soon as it was revealed. The angel Gabriel alayhi salam used to recite the Quran with the Prophet, peace be upon him, once a year, and this practice was known as ardah. In the last year of the Prophet, peace be upon him's life, he recited Quran 2 times. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, says in Sahih Bukhari, Gabriel used to repeat the recitation of the Quran with the Prophet, peace be upon him, once a year, but he repeated it twice with him in that year. He died. The Prophet used to stay in ittikaf for 10 days every year in the month of Ramadan, but in the year of his death, he stayed in ittikaf for 20 days. The Prophet, peace be upon him, also encouraged the companions to memorize the Quran. He had about 40 scribes of the divine revelation, official and non-official, who would come in his presence. He would dictate the verses, they would write it down on their copies. Of course, they were not like booklets present today, but they had made pieces of paper, leather, bones, stones, camel's shin bone and other bones. They're quite big and flat, so you can write in them. That was used actually. So in this way, many scribes such as Zayd bin Sabit, Abdullah bin Mas'ud, Ubay bin Ka'b, they wrote down the Quran on these things. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, would instruct them to place it. They had a collection in Masjid al-Nabi, so he would instruct them to place it at this particular place and in this surah and with these verses already written before. So in this way, the Quran was collected in the lifetime of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and 4 prominent men among the scribes were from the Ansar were Ubay bin Ka'b, Muaz bin Jabal, Abu Zayd, and Zayd bin Sabit. Now, after the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him's death, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu assumed the seat of the caliphate. In his caliphate, he fought the battle of Yamama against one of the false prophet, Muzailima. And according to one report, in that fierce battle, 300 Hafiz al-Quran gave up their lives. When Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu saw this, he thought that might not we lose the glorious Quran because the Huffaz were dying their natural deaths or dying in the battles, and the copies of Quran that weren't whole copies because there were portions spread in Masjid al-Nabi written on bones and palm leaves and all that, so they weren't compiled in one collection. So he went to Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the caliph, and he said that we should compile the Quran. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu was reluctant and hesitant at first, and he said that how can we do something that the Prophet, peace be upon him, never even thought of? But Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu convinced him until Allah opened his heart. Then he ordered Zayd bin Sabit radiallahu ta'ala anhu, although he was too reluctant at first, but it was urged, and he finally accepted, and he was ordered to collect the Quran. He was accompanied by many Sahaba, some say 12, some say 25, some even say 75, but many prominent Sahaba such as Ali radiallahu ta'ala and Umar radiallahu ta'ala and many others, they accompanied him, and they made a public proclamation to bring any copies of Quran anyone possesses to Masjid al-Nabawi, and they went to every people to collect that copies of Quran. And they followed a set criteria to accept any verses that claimed to be the part of Quran. First of all, they needed two trustworthy witnesses who would say that this part had been written in the presence of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. Second, Zayd bin Sabit would match the verses with the recitation of the Hafiz of Quran, and then he would match it with the already written copies that the companions had prepared for themselves. Then any verse would be accepted as part of the Quran. In this way, they collected Quran from bones, from palm leaves, from pieces of leather, and from all that, and they got it. In this way, the Quran was compiled into an Quran was compiled into an which consisted of separate folios. It wasn't in a book form, it was in an that had separate folios for every surah. So, and it was given to the Caliph Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. After Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu passed away, it was given to Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the second rightly guided Caliph, and then to his daughter Hazrat Hafza radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who was also one of the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, wives of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and mothers of the faithful. At the time of Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that was the third stage. What happened was that the Prophet's companions were growing old, and Usman radiallahu ta'ala anhu's during his caliphate, the empire had grown so big that it stretched from Kabul to Morocco and from Asia to Africa. And he spread companions all throughout the empire to preach Islam, teach Islam, and they became centers of learning. And in this way, the people following one particular companion used to follow his way of recitation of the Quran. There were different dialects that were used to recite the Quran. And one of the companions, Hudayfa bin Yaman, was on the Syrian frontier on a war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And he noticed the difference between people who recite the Quran. People of Syria were reciting Quran according to the recitation of Ubay bin Ka'b, and the people of Iraq were reciting it according to the dialect of Abdullah bin Masud. So he came to the Caliph Uthman radiallahu ta'ala and told him that this difference might lead to rifts and divisions in the empire. The Caliph was alarmed. He sent a letter to Hazrat Hafza radiallahu ta'ala and who asked her to please give us back the manuscripts so that we compile it into perfect copies and return them back to you. So Usman radiallahu ta'ala and did so, that he once again held a committee, and the head was again Zayd bin Sabit radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and along with Zayd bin Sabit there were three Qurayshi people, Abdullah bin Zubair, Sayyid bin al-Asr, and Abdul Rahman bin Harith radiallahu ta'ala. All of three of these were Quraysh. Zayd bin Sabit was an Ansar. These three were the Quraysh ones. And the reason these three were appointed along with Zayd bin Sabit is that the Usman radiallahu ta'ala ordered to follow the Qurayshi dialect and write down the manuscripts of Quran into perfect copies. Previously it was in folios, now perfect copies. And if Zayd bin Sabit differs in the dialect, these three Qurayshites will help him to write it according to the Qurayshi dialect. So in this way, perfect copies of Quran according to the Qurayshi dialect were prepared. Many copies were prepared, and the copies of Quran in the empire that followed other dialects, other areas of Arabs that didn't speak Qurayshi dialect, they were ordered to be burned. In this way, Usman radiallahu ta'ala brought the Muslims to a uniform reading of the Quran, and this is why he is called Jami' Quran. In this way, the Quran was compiled into perfect copies, and some of the copies were sent to different provinces such as Basra, Syria, Egypt, Persia, and so on. And one was kept in Medina as well. So in this way, the Quran was compiled. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made sure that the Quran was according to what Allah had revealed in the lifetime of the Prophet, and Allah had promised in the Quran. Verily, we have sent down the message, the Quran, and we will assuredly guard it from corruption. In this way, Allah Ta'ala fulfilled His promise